My dear brothers and sisters, I would like to share with you an incident narrated to me by one of my friends. She's a nun and she's working in a remote area. This sister was telling me one day she was traveling by train. She got into the train and there when she sat, there was a young girl seated with her family. And when she saw this sister, she greeted her, and this young girl was seated there and she was very busy with her mobile, so this nun did not disturb her. The train journey continued and this girl kept on looking at the mobile. She was watching something and this sister was looking at that girl, watching her mobile. And as this girl was watching her mobile, she seemed to be a little tense. And there were tears that came to her eyes, started falling from her face. And as these tears were falling from her face, this nun, this sister thought that maybe this girl is disturbed about something. There was a little empty space near her. She thought she would go nearby and just comfort her. She looked to be a very friendly girl, a Hindu girl, and this sister thought, let me go and comfort her. So she went and sat next to that girl. And as she looked at the mobile, she saw that this girl was watching the movie The Passion of Christ. It was a clip from The Passion of Christ, and this Hindu girl was looking at the sufferings of Jesus, and as she was looking at the sufferings of Jesus, tears welled onto her eyes. And this nun did not say anything to her. She just allowed her to be the way she was. And then this girl's family, her parents, they started asking her to eat something, but she just stopped them. She said, I don't want anything. I just want to finish what I am viewing. My dear friends, this girl, being from another religion, she was so moved. She was so much touched by the sacrifice of Jesus. And as I was listening to this friend of mine, this sister, expressing this incident, I was just thinking about my own life. She being a Hindu, she was so much touched by the sacrifice of Jesus. How much moved am I reflecting upon what Jesus has done for me? Very often, I think about what I am doing for Jesus, but do I realize what Jesus has done for me on the cross? My dear brothers and sisters, this was the same attitude that Saint Peter had. In today's gospel, we see how he's telling Jesus, see Jesus, we have left everything and followed you. Master, we have left everything and followed you. And Jesus reassures him, don't worry, your sacrifice, what you have done is not in vain. Peter is telling Jesus that he has left everything and followed him, but Peter fails to realize how much more Jesus has done for him. Very often, my dear friends, the same thing happens in our day-to-day lives. We fail to realize the sacrifice of Jesus for each one of us on the cross. Saint Peter realized it later on. When the time came for him to die, that is the time he said, I don't want to be crucified the way my master was crucified. Crucify me upside down because I am not worthy to die the way that he died. My dear friends, this realization came much later. And in today's first reading, the same Saint Peter is telling us something beautiful in his letter. What is he saying? He's reminding us about God's call to each one of us, the call to be holy. This call is present in the book of Leviticus chapter 19 verse 2. Be holy as I, your Lord, am holy. And Saint Peter is reminding us in today's first reading about this call. Be holy as God is holy. My dear friends, we speak so much about holiness, but what is holiness really about? Holiness is about spiritual maturity. My dear friends, we need to be spiritually mature. Just like we become physically mature, we become mentally mature, emotionally mature, we need to be spiritually mature. Very often I hear people saying, Father, I am spiritual, but I'm not religious. I'm sure you must have heard the same comment, no? Father, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Which means to say, I'm spiritual, but I don't want to have anything to do with the faith. I don't want to have anything to do with church. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. But my dear friends, holiness does not consist in that. What is holiness about? Pope Francis tells us, holiness is living our lives in love and bearing witness to Jesus. These two things have to be there. You live your life with love and you bear witness to Jesus. And my dear friends, I was reading an article about what holiness is about, and in that article it's beautifully brought out that holiness is about 4 main things. The first thing, surrendering every part of my life to God. Surrendering every part of my life to Jesus. That is the first aspect of holiness. The second part, giving myself fully for others. When I give myself fully for others, I am becoming holy. The third thing, I embrace suffering that comes and I unite it with the suffering of Jesus. So in this way, suffering does not become an obstacle between me and God, but suffering becomes a means through which I unite more deeply with Christ. And in the fourth place, holiness is about choosing the riches of heaven rather than choosing what the world is offering you, the pleasures of the world. I refuse the pleasures of the world, but I choose the riches of heaven. So in that article, they beautifully bring out how holiness is about these 4 things. Just reminding you again, the first thing is surrender every part of your life to God. Second thing is giving yourself wholly for others. Third is embracing suffering and uniting it with the suffering of Christ. And the fourth thing is choosing the riches of heaven rather than choosing what the world has to offer. My dear brothers and sisters, as we speak about holiness, we have a lovely saint like Saint Anthony, Blessed Carlo Acutis. He's been on the news these days because I don't know whether you have heard about it, but there's a second miracle that has been recorded already, and now Blessed Carlos Acutis is on the way to canonization. He's going to be the millennium saint, okay? And his canonization is expected somewhere around 2025. That's what Pope Francis has said. So my dear friends, this Blessed Carlo Acutis, he was a young boy who was spiritually mature. He lived his life in holiness. He was just a normal human being, but he loved God with all his heart. He surrendered his life to Him. When blood cancer came, he united that suffering with the suffering of Christ, and that became a deep bond between him and Jesus. My dear friends, that suffering aspect of his is something that we really need to remember. When sufferings come in our life, sometimes we grumble against God, we curse God. No. When suffering comes, my dear friends, we need to take courage. We need to unite that suffering with Christ. And this miracle that was reported was very interesting. Blessed Carlo Acutis, his tomb is in Assisi, where Saint Francis of Assisi, his tomb is in Assisi. And this was a miracle that took place in the life of a lady from Costa Rica. Her name is Liliana. And this Liliana, she went to the tomb of Blessed Carlo Acutis. Why did she go there? Because her daughter, Valeria, who was in Florence for her university studies, she met with a bicycle accident. She fell on the road and, her brain was damaged, and doctors had said there was no hope for her to, survive, and a very complicated surgery was advised. So this mother went and prayed at the tomb of Carlo Acutis, and through the intercession of Blessed Carlo Acutis, this girl, she, recovered. She started breathing normally, and she was fully well and recovered without a surgery. And the family went to the tomb of Blessed Carlo Acutis to say thank you. So my dear friends, this was a model for each one of us of holiness, a model of holiness like Saint Anthony of Padua, like the other saints. So my dear friends, just as the Lord is inviting each one of us to be holy, let us look at our own lives, let us introspect ourselves, let us examine the way we are going, and let us come closer to God. Let us live our lives in union with Jesus. Let us live our lives in love, and let us bear witness to the Lord as Pope Francis tells us beautifully. For this grace, let us pray during this Holy Eucharist.